on the WRMN 1410 AM Fox River Valley Media Network, streaming live.
Welcome. Go ahead. You guys are on and kick off the show.
Welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Now, if you want to get a hold of us, contact us streaming live on WRMN1410.com. Our studio number is voice 847-931-1410 or text 505-926-1410 or contact us on the comments on Facebook Live WRMN 1410 channel. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about what happens if you feel like you're the victim of fraud or if you have a complaint. But before we start that, I'd like to kind of acknowledge something. Yesterday in Australia and in New Zealand was what's considered their Remembrance Day. So this is a veterans channel. So we would like to extend a greeting to our veterans who might be from Australia and New Zealand. And today is also the 10th anniversary of my dad's passing. He was a Seaman First Class in World War II on LST 500 and 429, and he was also a Chicago police officer. So with that out of the way, we welcome any calls, and we'd like to talk about what happens if you're a victim of a crime. Now, Marla, you've talked to some people, and what are the common questions that they've had?
I said I've got a blinking green.
In terms of consumer, what do you do if you have a consumer complaint? What should the average person do?
Well, the first step you do would be to take it up with the corporation or the business. That's the first thing you would do. The second step, if you don't get satisfaction with that, would be I recommend to people to go to the Better Business Bureau. And you can file your complaint online, which I found to be a very helpful and interesting process. The Better Business Bureau likes to contact the business right away, and you usually get a resolution fairly quickly. The next step is kind of like a threefold step.
Okay.
If you live in a municipality like Chicago or Cook County, you would, in Chicago, you would first go to the Department of Consumer Affairs or the Department of Consumer Services.
But that's natural.
If you live in Cook County, you could file a complaint with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, the Consumer Protection Division. And they're open from 8:30 to 4 p.m. and their phone number is 312-603-8700. And you would ask them for a consumer complaint form. Also, if you're in the state of Illinois, you could file a complaint with the Illinois Attorney General's office, and you could file that online at 1-800-386-5438. They have a local number of 312-814-3000. And typically what these complaints require you to do is put your contact information, the type of complaint that you have, and then you would then go into the facts, and then they would review the complaint. Now, sometimes it helps if there's multiple complaints by different people, because that shows a pattern in practice. But those would be the first three steps that I would take.
Where do you think someone would go if they had a complaint about their physician?
Okay, that's a whole other different area. If you have a concern about your doctor, doctors are regulated by the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation in the medical section. So you would go to the Department of Professional Regulation, and they have a whole separate other complaint form that you would fill out. And their number is 312-814-3000. 4,500. And the same would be true for nurses. If you have a complaint about a nursing agency or a nurse, because the Department of Professional Regulation is what regulates the medical professions, and they have their own investigators, and then they would then look into the matter. Now, if it's relating to a hospital, you would also want to contact the administrative staff at the hospital to advise them of your concerns. And you can always contact the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington if you have a concern about a hospital or a medical department.
Now, what about if it's someone that's preparing your taxes?
Okay, again, the Department of Professional Regulation regulates a lot of agencies, and typically CPAs that would do taxes are regulated through the Department of Professional Regulation. So you could go to their website and file a complaint with regard to any CPA issues that you have, and also to make sure that they are licensed.
What about if we have any viewers here that are dealing with real estate people right now?
Okay, the Department of Professional Regulation also regulates real estate agents, real estate brokers, and appraisers. And they would be the one to contact if you have a concern about that. There's also issues with the real estate professional boards and groups. Like a person, they might be a real estate agent, but they can't use the title realtor unless they are in fact a recognized realtor with the agency that recognizes them. So you could also file a complaint with that group if you have a concern about that.
Well, what about our viewers that are dealing with litigation and they have some concerns with actually their attorney?
Okay, all attorneys in Illinois are regulated through the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission. And you could file a complaint with them. They're located in Chicago and in Springfield. So you could file a complaint with them. I believe they have a method to do it online, but you could also call up there and ask them how they do it. Now, this brings up an important point, and I'm glad you mentioned this. I've always told people with regard to filing complaints or concerns about people they're dealing with, it's kind of after you hire them, it's a lot harder than before you would hire them. So all of these groups have an ability to look someone up before you engage them. Like you could find out if there's any complaints against your doctor. You could find out if there's any complaints against your real estate broker. You could find out if there's any complaints against your lawyer. You could find out if there's any complaints against your accountant. And you can do this by going online. All this information is public. Now with lawyers, you go, you search by name, and then when you find their name, you click on it, and then it would tell you whether or not they've been disciplined. And then you could click on to the thing, the box, and see what the charges against them were and whether they were sanctioned, suspended, or disbarred or anything like that. And that's an important avenue to go to before you do it. And I also advise people before they engage a business to check with the Better Business Bureau way before you hire someone.
It's really easy to do.
It is.
Yeah.
And also though, the Better Business Bureau has a membership. And the fact that somebody is or isn't a member doesn't necessarily matter. It matters what their rating is with the Better Business Bureau. So you might not be a member of the Better Business Bureau, but you might have an A or an A+ rating. So it's always good to check that. So the fact that they're not a member doesn't exclude you from engaging with them or dealing with them. It matters how they respond to complaints. and you would want to look at how many times a complaint has been filed against someone and what the resolution was.
Well, what if you have, Paul, any concerns about viewers with their insurance or their insurance broker?
Okay, just like the Department of Professional Regulation, the Illinois Department of Insurance has their own website. And what they do is they keep a list of people that are licensed insurance brokers, and you could go to them if you have a complaint about them. Do we have any callers so far?
Hello?
No callers yet. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. So thank you.
Well, we actually call it.
So so if you have a complaint against somebody from the like an insurance broker, you could go to the Illinois Department of Insurance and look them up. And that's a very important thing, because you know, you see all these ads for, you know, SR22, and you see all these ads about these kind of insurance companies and stuff like that. And, you know, I always like to tell people, sometimes it's not the places that advertise are the ones you want to go to, because advertising costs a lot of money, and you know, maybe you would get a better service from somebody else as long as you're able to check them out. So I advise that. Another thing is, you know, I used to give speeches when I worked for the Attorney General's office and the state's attorney, and you know, I would tell groups, you know, like JCs or Toastmasters clubs and things like that, you know, if you have a corporation or a business that says it's licensed, bonded, and insured, that really doesn't mean anything. Okay, what you know, they should all be licensed if they have a profession. Okay, they should have insurance from their own perspective, and bonded really doesn't really mean anything. So it's, you know, I mean, you could have a guy that's bonded and he could take a whole bunch of clients' payments and then walk off and stiff everybody, and then it doesn't really matter. So I would tell people, you know, you really have to be careful. Now, there's a certain perspective to this, that you might want to take advice from somebody who has had work done. You know, like, who did you have to have your gutters done? Or who did you have to have your roof installed? Because that sometimes is a good source. But I've had that work both ways. I've had it work where you went to somebody who had a recommendation, and then they were starting to get, you know, behind on their business and fail. And so what a person that had had a great recommendation might then start slacking off. In fact, something like that very similarly happened to me about 10 years ago. I had my roof installed, and I had this company do it, and they were a highly recommended company, and they had a really good reputation. And about a year later, they actually did, she never asked me, but my cousin had them do the roofing for them. And what happened was they actually didn't do the job correctly, and that my cousin actually a couple of years later had her roof, which was leaking. So that was kind of a bad situation. So you really have to watch out for that.
Personally, I don't like the online recommendations, because, you know, the vendor can actually put their own recommendations on, sign up as an artificial name. And I'd rather hear it from someone that I knew, or someone even at one of the major stores. Sometimes they have cards at the front desk at the Home Depots and the Lowe's and the Menards and all that. I'd rather take a chance with that than just look at, you know, general websites. Again, they could post their own. It's kind of like rate my whatever.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's better, where you buy your doors, as long as it's a reputable place, like Marla mentioned, Lowe's or Home Depot or Menards, to ask them who are their contractors. And I think you'll find a really good result there. But again, whatever is recommended to you, always go and check with the Better Business Bureau first if you can. Or, what I did when I had some work done, I actually called the village and asked them if they had any issues with a certain contractor, or if the certain contractor was one of the approved on the list for the village.
I'm on more social media platforms, I think, than Paul. I'm more of a viewer than a poster. But I noticed that people from my neighborhood or the surrounding neighborhoods are asking for recommendations, and even, for example, caretakers, and where they're going to allow people in their house or to take care of their children and that, and you don't know who these people are. And so I would be wary of that. If any of you are with any religious affiliations, maybe at your synagogue or church or mosque or whatever, or similar, or temple, or community center, maybe someone knows someone, I would take more of a chance than just a blind, responding to someone on a social media platform. It could even be deadly. In terms of, someone says they know how to repair something and they don't, and something falls in on your house, or someone could be compromised if you're letting them watch even your pet. So, obviously a child would be worse, but I just wouldn't get involved like that in today's crazy world. And you have to be careful who you trust. It's kind of like the name brand thing. We grew up more with utilizing name brands and that. But Paul is really good. When I had to have my home upgraded, we were able to, actually a good friend recommended someone, and then he recommended some other people. Be careful who you let in your house too. And be careful who you have with them if you have a lawn care service too. Ours is insured and bonded and whatever, and a lot of people are pro-union too. So as a former union employee myself, I always look at union work too. So workers. So I don't know. It's really important to think about these things. Everybody's trying to get a buck from everybody else, and I remember I made a mistake about maybe 10, 12 years ago. And where I was living at the time, I had gotten a fence last minute. There were some loose dogs running around the neighborhood, and I was actually frightened. And I really paid through the nose, is the term, for the fence. And maybe I should have checked it out a little better. Well, and then they get hold of the person after that.
You contacted somebody who had sold the business, I think it was, and somebody else had taken it over, and they weren't the same as.
And I remember when I was a child, my father had hired a contractor back then when I was, I'm a kid from the 60s, or so from the 60s, but when I was little, young, my father had hired a wallpaper contractor. And back then, patterns were a lot of the wallpaper, where you would have a pattern that you would have to match. And I remember I watched the guy, and the guy would do, this much wallpaper and throw out a whole roll. And my father my father was honorable. He said, I'll pay you for today's, and then let me think about it. So the guy wanted, no, I'll finish for you. And we didn't. So, you have to be careful who you hire. And again, with safety, who you let in your home. You don't want to have a home invasion. You don't want to have someone with someone else. We didn't mention credit card fraud, did we, Paul?
No.
I've been a victim of credit card fraud myself over the years on and off. I actually look at my charges every day, and I don't use cards all the time. But and only carry one once in a while if you're going somewhere important too. But I don't carry the whole pack with me. because I've actually had a purse stolen over the years. You know, and that's not, you know, it's more trouble to have to get your license redone and your insurance, and then you're, you know, now we're worried about people looking for you and everything. So, I mean, what would you recommend?
Well, when you talk about credit card fraud, what you're really talking about is the much larger crime of what they call identity theft. And I used to be a prosecutor for both the state and the county. And identity theft is a wide and a broad-ranging problem. And it involves where someone either takes control of your birth certificate, your driver's license, your state ID, your government ID, your social security number, your credit card number, or your debit card number, or believe it or not, your passport or anything like that, and then they use it for a criminal purpose. And it just matters if they take one piece of information from that. And by that, we talk about personal identifying information like your name, or your address, or your date of birth, or your telephone number, or your license number, or your state ID number, or your driver's license number, or your social security number, or any other unique number that's assigned to you, or your mother's maiden name, or your like your personal bank account information, or your MasterCard number. Now, people will say, why is this important? Well, anybody could be a victim of identity theft, and there's some programs out there that will help you with that. But there's something that you have to understand. When you're a victim of identity theft, that's really a tragic circumstance. It's really a problem, because you have to change all of your numbers, you have to change your card. And are we taking a break?
You got 1 minute to roll until break.
Okay, so when we get back from the break, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some important information relating to that.
And don't forget check writing. I want to go.
Right, that's an important issue too.
Gel pens.
Get gel pens.
See you in a few.
Mailed it in the post office, and all of a sudden I got a notice from my bank that my account was overdrawn, and by $5,000. So what happened was my check was washed, and a $200 check was, and it was funny because the payee wasn't altered. And so the check was washed, and
the numbers were changed.
The numbers were changed.
The written numbers were changed
from
the written amount.
200 to 2,000, 200 to 2,000, and 100 to 1,000. And it was the same person who cashed it. And these were mailed again inside the post office.
They were cashed together?
They were cashed at the same day at the same person's account, someone that I didn't even know.
A bank we really didn't know much about. It wasn't a bank that we're familiar with.
It was like an online type bank, and it was like it was very strange. I think it was probably brought into a ATM machine. But the problem was that was the account where I had one of my direct deposit checks put in. So what I kind of advise people, particularly if you have different direct deposit checks put in from different places, send them to different accounts, because if you get hit, that basically allows you not to use that account for anything. So, I mean, you know, you could be late on your bills. So I tell people, stagger your payments into different institutions and different accounts as a way to protect yourself. So don't have your Social Security put in with your pension or your, work. I mean, so you need to protect yourself in those areas.
And a lot of people do the online, and the online can still get captured by a criminal. Paul a lot of times likes to mail things in, and you would go to several post, but you would mail them all in the same
Location, right?
And then he prefers to go in a post office than not. I do both. I go online and mail things in, but I've actually started to follow that as well. I mean, it's not any. The bank usually doesn't give you the money back right away till it's investigated. And
which
really
could be
tragic for some
they have the ability to wait 6 months to pay you back, and it's kind of sad that they do that, especially if it's clear, blatant fraud. Like mine was made out to Sears, and it was cashed by an individual that was not Sears. So, and that was not changed on the check. But when you call up these institutions, they're not real nice when you call up, because they say, oh yeah, right, here's another one. But see, that's the problem. And it doesn't hurt them, but it hurts you. And what was really bad in my case, I had a small line of credit attached attached to my checking account. So they just took a loan out for $5,000 on my basically on my line of credit, and I had to pay that down because I was paying interest on that. And it took me a good 3 months to get the money refunded, but I finally did get the money refunded. And then you have to cancel your checking account and get a whole new number, and then I had to have a new direct deposit put in there. So that can actually be a tremendous hassle. Now, what you do in a situation like that is you go to the postal inspectors and you file a complaint over the telephone or online.
So if you're in Illinois, it would be down.
No, it would be just contact the U.S. postal inspectors. And then you would go to your local police department, and then they give you a number, like a case number, and then they just give you a slip, just a slip of paper that you're supposed to, it has the number on it that you're supposed to give your bank to let them know you filed a complaint, right? And then the process takes its time. Now, do not be surprised if the postal inspector never gets back in touch with you. They'll give you a number, but they might not ever get back in touch with you after that, because they have so many of these that they don't even bother, which is kind of sad, because when I was working in government, I used to take these cases as a way to be a deterrent, but now they don't even take them if they're $10,000 or $20,000. And then, one of these people gets away with stealing $10,000 or $20,000. They keep doing it, which is why we've got this recidivism rate. And this problem is like astronomically and geometrically exploding out there.
So if you have a larger check, you would recommend going into the post office?
Yeah, I'd recommend
using a gel pen. And
right.
Don't mail 3 large checks at one time.
Correct. And mail them.
Or the same location.
Right, mail them from different locations. And that's really sad that you have to do that.
It's time
or if you can, pay it online or pay it over the phone with some immediate receipt that comes in. That's what I've been doing a lot lately in an effort to avert these kind of tragedies and problems, because that can be a real big problem for an individual, particularly a senior citizen who depends on, their income and their account. It's really sad.
Don't leave checks in your car unattended if you're having service. I watch what I carry in case I lose it, and make a record of what your numbers are somewhere, right?
Yes, keep it separate. And maybe in a locked place like a safe or or a locked container so that where they're not available to someone who might try to break in or something like that, but yet you have them in an emergency and you list them. That's an important thing to list and keep it in an area that's safe and secure.
I was amazed after talking with a lot of Paul's colleagues and friends, how many people and actually neighbors I found that actually have home safes. More and more people are carrying and concealed carry and having protection in their home and on them and whatever. But I was just surprised at how many people have home safes and off-site storage. I'll call it. I won't say it's in their storage locker, but they're utilizing banks with their safety deposit boxes and stuff. So
now,
I didn't realize all this.
Now, if you are a victim of one of these attacks, they always tell you to, like I said, contact the police, contact the postal inspector, your insurance company too. But they also advise you to request your credit report. And currently, and for the last 20-some years, there have been 3 major credit reporting agencies. Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Yeah. Now, they tell you to do this. Now, I think this is very important that you do this, all right? Now, you are entitled to a free credit report, I think either once a year or once every 6 months from each of these agencies. And I think that's an important thing to do, okay? But if you are a victim of one of these frauds, I wouldn't request it from all 3 at the same time. I would space it out. I would immediately request it from one and wait about 3 to 5 months and request one from the other. And then about 3 to 5 months, request one from another one. And then by then a year has expired, and then get it back from the first one to check it out. Because, they each take a source from a little bit different place, but I wouldn't get all 3 of them at the same time, because this way you could make an effort to protect yourself and make sure that you're monitoring what's going on. Now, there's also a thing where they tell you to put a credit freeze on, and I would advise you to do that when one of these incidents happens, so that way you know that no one can get credit in your name.
It's usually, 6 months or a year? It's a temporary.
Something like that. And I have an interesting story about that, which we'll get to. But they tell you to put an alert on, or one of them called a hawk, okay? And I just want to let you know that I got a strange piece of mail one time at my house. This was when I was working as a prosecutor. So I put one of these alerts on, and I put this hawk on. And then I come to find out that I start getting offers for credit immediately. Like offers were immediate. And I found out, and I'm not going to name them, that one of the credit reporting agencies had engaged in a program with certain credit card companies to highlight their members who had a certain income level, okay? And it was even worse than that. They were using for the call bank prisoners in an Atlanta prison who were calling you. They couldn't access your information, but they were calling you through a bank at the prison to make these offers to you. And then once the offer came in, the credit card agency took it over. So I kind of found that kind of really stupid and really beyond the pale, but I mean, it was something that actually did happen. So you have to watch out for that. But
it's good whenever you open up credit, or even what you have now, call them and say you would like to take advantage of privacy. Don't sell my name. Don't sell my information. I'm really big on the internet, but I don't have a huge internet presence, and I don't think you do as well.
No.
We don't want to be targets, and still, you know, in today's day and age, today's world, you know, it's all out there. Everybody wants you out there, but it's better to keep a lower profile. At least I think so. Probably you do too, Mel.
You know, to the point of dealing with the credit card companies and the replacement credit cards, I had a case one time, I'm not going to mention the name, but it was in Cook County. It was kind of sad. It was this woman that was basically immobile. She was in a wheelchair, and she was committing frauds with the wheelchair. She would go into like shopping malls, and she had people pushing her. And what she would do is she would take these credit card information from people, and she would buy multiple things. And then she was either selling them or giving them away. And it was really sad because one of the cards, this is going back about 18 years, we had a bad storm in our area. And some area were without power for a while. And she pretended to be a victim, and because she had the information of the person, and she said that, you know, her card was damaged in the storm, or it was lost or something like that, and she was temporarily staying with somebody, which was her, but that wasn't true. And American Express, like that, immediately sent her a new card in the person's name, but at her address. And then she got the card, and then she went and she started making purchases, you know, fraudulent purchases in astronomical amounts of money. And it was funny because one of the postal inspectors had gone to high school with me, and he was a friend of mine, and they brought me the case. And I asked them to do a reinvestigation at one of the jewelry stores, was actually at Ford City in Chicago. And he was in there, and he was like talking to the owner when the offender was wheeled in, and she was committing her fraud like while he was in the store. So he was it was an on view arrest and everything. But it was funny because the Chicago police didn't want to have anything to do with it, because the woman was in a wheelchair. So we had to get the county sheriff to transport her to the jail. But it was really sad. I mean,
did she really need a wheelchair?
She did. But
okay.
The point, she didn't stop her, as they would say in the movies, criminal and misdemeanoring and felonies, even though she was in the wheelchair. She was a diehard criminal. It was funny because when she was sentenced, the judge was a really good judge. It was Judge Schreier, and he told her that she was like a reprobate. And it was funny that in her statement at the end, she thanked the government men, me and the G-man from the postal inspector's office. But it was really sad. I mean, you know, and these people, they don't care about you. They don't care how this hurts you, how your life is destroyed, or that, you know, it could be devastating to you. I mean, you could miss buying a house because your credit's damaged. You could miss a deal on a car, and they don't care about that. They're just criminals. But again, so what's a good thing to do is to get the report and do the request to the Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. But again, do not do it at the same time. Space them out, because that's very important for you to do, okay?
Oh, have you ever had any, I don't know if I could ask you about your cases or not, but dealing with investment fraud?
Yeah.
And our viewers may be dealing with investment professionals.
Yes.
How do you choose one, if you need one or want one, that will be handling your interests in your best interest?
It's kind of sad. I used to specialize in securities fraud, And that's traditionally primarily a federal issue, which is unusual. But actually, what a lot of people don't know is it's actually also regulated by the state. So if you're involved in investments, and an investment could mean anything, it could mean stock, it could be bonds, it could be real estate, or an offer for a business or something like that. So if you should always check the investment out first, both with the Securities and Exchange Commission and also with the Illinois Secretary of State Securities Division.
Or deal with a reputable financial institution.
That's correct. That's always an important thing.
And now, all these people that even are employed there, there's websites that you can go to check them out, that at least they're licensed by the appropriate.
They have these appropriate securities license.
Yeah, it's online for public viewing.
But what's really sad is people don't really realize that, I had a case that was kind of famous in the area. It was a guy who would advertise on a certain ethnic radio station for his investments. And it was mostly Hispanic. And it was really sad because he had taken like 20 investors, and he had taken them for millions and millions of dollars. And for me to see these people and have to deal with them, and what happened was,
were they licensed?
No, he was not licensed. What happened was he took these people, and it was so sad because one guy got a heart attack because he lost his money, and then another guy, and the case was tried. It was done in DuPage County. And all these investors would show up, and they would come to court, and it got so bad, and the judge was terrific. When they'd stand up, their chairs would like bang, and she'd have to stop her court, because they stood up or sat down or when they left. And it was really sad. And we were hoping that the federal government was going to take it over, and it was they wouldn't take it. And what happened was I had it, and it was really sad because, I talked to this one guy, and he was a victim, and he was able to save $1 million. And then he told me that he was broke. He had no money to send his daughters to college. And he said he wanted to talk to the guy. And I said, why would you do that? And he goes, because I want to see where my money went. And I showed him. The guy at the time had spent the money on Bulls tickets, and he had spent the money on fancy stuff for his girlfriend, and he had spent the stuff on a car. And so when the one investment came in, he used it to give a little bit of money to a previous investor. That's what they call a Ponzi type scheme, where he uses part of the money to pay off or give good faith money to a prior investor, and then he spends the money, and then people recommend him, and so on and so on and so on. And it was really sad. And the federal government, it was too small of a case for them. But anyway, it worked out, and the guy received a sentence of 13 years, which was one of the largest. And it was kind of sad because on my way home from the courthouse, it was already on the news. And by then the FBI had been calling me to congratulate me. And they were telling me that was a 13-year state sentence was more of a sentence than they would have received for the guy's conviction federally. And it's really sad. And when you see the destruction of the people, and that they have basically no future or no hope, and it just makes you, check the investment out before you make it, because by the time you make it, it's too late. And if you even get 10% of your money back by then, you're ahead of the game. usually you don't get anything back, and it's really sad.
I mean, we all have license. I mean, Paul's a licensed attorney. I have a license with the state of Illinois and type 75 and some endorsements. And I know even our dentist has a license. Here,
Professionals.
have a license. I guess the plumbers have a license, and the other people. My one pet peeve, and like I said, I'm on social media a lot more than Paul, looking at things even like Facebook and other things. And I'm a proponent of Facebook. I do like it a lot. I think it's a great platform. But I'm talking about a lot of these neighborhood. I think that's where I wanted to go with this. These neighborhood platforms, like if you live in a certain town or village or whatever, they have these platforms, and everybody in themselves are putting down that they are selling food. And I cringe every time I see this, because I wonder, do they have a food license? And what happens if you're ill with someone's, whatever, so I guess we're going on a break.
You guys are good. You got about another 40 seconds until break.
So it's important for you to do some homework. Be proactive. Check all the things, and even look through articles that might mention people that had trouble with them. Or as Marla said, go to social media and see if anybody is saying anything about it. And then that way you'll know when, because it's your money. It's your money, and invest it wisely.
Some action-packed, exciting pulp fiction? Read the works of Michael Tuman, now featuring the international crime thriller, I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tuman's webpage at Scilink.net. That's Papa Sierra Yankee Lima India November Kilo November Echo Tango. Join your co-hosts Mike Tuman and Paul Burvid on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on
Oh my goodness, I'm the guest here, so Paul is more structured with this, I should say. We were going to mention a little bit about what consumers should be careful about hiring people in their house. I think you mentioned briefly.
Yes, you should always check them out and make sure that you should always you should
sorry.
You should always be careful of who you hire and what you're looking to have done. And also ask the person if they've ever had or done the thing before. The matter that you went to.
Doctor, how many
of these have you done, or something like that.
Oh goodness.
Also,
okay.
Let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about generally medical fraud. Now, these would be like what we would call patent medicine cures, or things that people say, if you take Olson's tonic, you will get your hair back. Or if you take my pill, you will have your arthritis relieved, okay? Those things, there's a difference between what they call commercial speech or puffery and what is a fraud. So, if you say that I have the best medicine in the world, right? Well, we all know that that's probably not true, okay? That it's probably just either works or doesn't work, or you think it works.
Are you talking about these infomercials?
Well, I'm talking about when they sell a product, like you'll even hear, say Randy's vegetable capsules that are great for your digestion, okay? There's a difference between commercial speech and actual fraud.
I would always check with my doctor. I know there's a lot of products out there promising great results, and I would always check with. I'm big at checking with the medical doctor. I remember as a kid, I must have been about 11, 12 years old. A patient came into my doctor's office, and he couldn't move, and the doctor. I don't know how I heard this. I think back then you were paying the bill next to where the medical off, you could hear or checking in or whatever. And long story short, the guy was just, he took one vitamin and he felt good, and took two more and he felt better, and he was taking a whole ton of them. And, you don't want to not follow medical advice. And I'll go one step farther. You don't want to do your own thing. I always consult the experts, especially when it comes to my health, my welfare, my safety, and whatever. So I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
I think that's important, that you're always careful, and you don't especially with your life, and then you also
your health.
You want to know what's in the ingredient, because some people, if there's like grapefruit or grapefruit extract in it, you can't take that with a statin. So you want to be careful about that. Another thing I want to cover is, particularly since the pandemic, okay, it's these work at home schemes, okay? Now, it's true that a lot of people got jobs where they could work at home, and a lot of them, enjoyed that. But generally, work at home schemes are kind of fraudulent, where what they want you to do is pay up front for the things that you're going to sell or whatever, and then
they have you piece things at home,
or but something that doesn't have a market, and they get paid from you. So you want to avoid that, and anything that would require anything that requires you to pay for training probably is not a good thing. So that's another thing you want to watch out for, our work at home schemes, particularly when they're telling you that you're going to earn $400 to $600 a week or something like that. You want to be careful about that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is important. It's something that I'm very familiar with. Charitable fraud. Like, you'll get calls, like I got called the other day. Hi, this is Doug. Didn't think I'd get you, but I'm calling for X police department, okay? Usually the police departments don't have a fundraiser. And the fire departments, if they do, it's from a letter from the mayor's office. And so if you're getting a call from the police and the firefighters fund, always ask them, are they a professional fundraiser? Because that means that that's not really the police department in your area and not the fire department in your area. What it is it's a professional fundraiser. And I used to work in that field of regulating them. Sometimes those people get paid 90% of what comes in. So you'd be better off finding out the address to the place itself and then sending a check yourself, where 100% of it will go to the fund, not just 10% or 20%. So, and again, check them out with the Illinois Attorney General's office. Check them out also with the Better Business Bureau. They have a registry on charities. And also, know your rights. You as an investor have a right to receive or examine the group's 990 form. So like individuals file a 1040, businesses file an 1120, charities or fraternal organizations, which are 501c somethings, charities are 501c, they all have to show you their 990 when requested. So be educated, charitable giver. Also, watch out for land fraud. Like we know some individuals that in the past have purchased land in a part of a state where there's no water or there's no electricity. And, basically you're stuck with it, and then you have to pay taxes on it. And unless you've got a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you cannot get to the land. So check it out, and also check out with the Department of Housing and Urban Development if you feel that, it's something questionable or suspect. Again, insurance fraud. Make sure you check them out with the Illinois Department of Insurance. And know this, that even if the insurance company is in another state, they can sell the policy here, but they're supposed to pay what's called an excess line, and make sure that they have paid that if you're going to deal with them. Watch out for chain letters, okay? Chain letters are a scheme, like when they, you're going to get so much and send it to so-and-so. Just know that for a chain letter to be successful, there has to be more than 13 mailings, okay? And if there's 13 mailings, that's like 13 billion people, okay? And the population of the world is only about 5 billion. So for everybody to get money, you would have to go around the world like 3 times. So that's never going to happen, okay? Be aware of that. Just be aware of that. Watch out for phony distributor or franchise frauds, okay? Now, you could check that out with the state of Illinois, okay? And there's a franchise tax division. That franchise division, you would want to check out to make sure the franchise is registered with the state of Illinois, okay? And watch out for these phony job opportunities, okay? You should make sure that whatever place you're dealing with is registered with the Illinois Department of Labor, okay?
They could get your information.
Correct.
And then what?
They could become you and then commit identity theft at a later date using your information.
There is no job, maybe.
Right. So remember, be careful, do your homework. Other problems, check them out with the agency that regulates them or the agency that's associated with them.
And if there is no agency, maybe don't.
Well, check them out with the Better Business Bureau.
Don't deal with them.
Right. And if you have nothing about on them, do not deal with them. Now, here's another question of what do you do if you get mail and it's sent to you, but you didn't order it?
A product?
Or anything. A lot of times there's something called unsolicited mail, okay?
Okay.
Well, you can always put return on there, okay? And
should you put return to sender or just throw it out?
You could do that, but if you never requested it, you're under no obligation to send it back.
You get to keep it?
You do, if you want. Now, most people would, like you said, throw it away or send it back. But if you did not request it, you are not responsible for paying for it. But make sure that someone else in your household has not requested it, because there's a famous episode of Leave It to Beaver where he engaged in buying a magazine subscription service for records or something like that. And he, kept getting records and he wasn't paying it, and he was responsible for it. But in that case, since he was a minor, he was under no obligation to comply with the contract, but he did send the records back. But, be careful, because unsolicited merchandise never has to be returned. Now, you should either, it doesn't have to be paid for. You should either, like Marla said, throw it away, return it to sender, but be careful about that because you are under no obligation. You incur no responsibility to pay something that was sent to you. There's a term in the law that equity does not aid a volunteer. Okay, so you would be cautious about that and not want to get involved in that.
I think people are inclined to send a package back that's not theirs, just say return to sender or address to them.
Right.
I mean, that's what I.
That would be the safest thing to do. Are there any other questions that you had?
Do I have any other questions? Not really.
Okay, let's go over a little bit on where you would go to check out certain things. Okay, so because again, I want this to be an information show, and we want the people to be fully informed. Okay, so generally, if you are concerned about a lawyer, you would go to the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission.
And there's a lookup for the public.
There is, and then it goes by name. Right, and you would want to check that out. So
same thing with the physician.
There is too.
But we went through that, but
and then if the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation is a very important source for information. So they have doctors, they have nurses, they have CPAs, they have private detectives, they have private security contractors, they have private alarm contractors, they have the private dog handlers.
There's more of an extensive list.
They have real estate brokers, real estate sales.
If their license was suspended or
correct. They have real estate appraisers, and then
this is a big list.
They have auctions. They regulate auctions. They regulate home inspectors. They regulate appraisers. Again, the Illinois Department of Labor regulates employment agencies. So you want to make sure that, if you sign up, with an employment agency, that you go to one that is properly licensed and regulated. And then I would want to talk about a couple of areas of concern, okay? So if the person that is scammed is over 60 years old or is in some way handicapped or injured, that becomes a serious offense because that's aggravated identity theft or aggravated home repair fraud. So these things are not just simple things. And I want to speak to that though too. One time I had a case when I was with the Attorney General's office, and I had two different people. One person had a guy doing home repair fraud, and the other person had the same guy doing plumbing work. Okay, same guy, two different victims, two different types of fraud, home repair, and the other was plumbing. Okay. So what happened is the victim that had him do the home repair fraud was actually a city worker. And she was real close to me in terms of location. So as we were getting ready for trial, I kind of went to see her several times during her lunch hour. And I asked her the questions. And I think I made her more angry and disappointed in me than in the guy. And I was grateful for doing that. Because when we did the trial, it was a consolidated trial because it would be the same defendant and the same agency looking into them, but two different witnesses. Okay, one related to plumbing and one related to home repair fraud. And when I talked to the plumbing woman, she just said that he didn't complete the job. And that's all she said. And then I asked her if she requested the money back, and she said yes, but she didn't detail it. Now, the woman that worked for the city and had the home repair fraud, she was so angry because I had been asking her this question. And I asked her, I said, did you request this money back? And she said, yes. And then she used the curse word, darn day. Every darn day, I asked them. I said, for how long did you? For months, okay? Now, when it came to the verdict, the judge didn't convict him for the woman that only asked for it once. He did it for the one, and he pointed that out. She said that she asked for it every so-and-so day. So the woman was persistent in her request. So make sure that if you are a victim, you are persistent in your request also. You ask for it every chance you get. You call, you send a text, you send an email, and you send a letter. And when you send the letter, you send it certified. And then also send it uncertified and put that on the letter. Put regular and certified mail, and then you send that to the person. And then you take that with all your other evidence, and then you bring that to whoever you're bringing it to, whether it's the Better Business Bureau, the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Attorney General's office, or the state's attorney's office. Make sure that you ask for it and can prove, and you have a track record of asking for it. Now, there's a difference too. When you go to these agencies, particularly the Attorney General or the state's attorney, there are a couple of different ways to look at it. The matter might be both a civil matter and a criminal matter at the same time. And it might be handled by the agency, but it'd be handled by two different parts of the agency. If it's the civil matter, it's handled in a regular civil matter where there's a complaint and then there's a hearing process. But if it's handled in a criminal matter, that's a whole other different ballgame. That means there's police action involved, and that means if the vendor or the business is determined to be not responding properly, there's criminal consequences, usually jail sentences or prison sentences. So it's important to keep the records, and it's important for the agency to make the determination. Now, what makes that determination, whether it's civil or criminal? Again, if there's multiple victims, sometimes—
You have a caller. You guys have a caller.
Okay, welcome, caller.
Yeah, I got a...
Caller, you're on.
Is Marlena? Gabby, is Marlena here? Okay.
Caller, you're on.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, it's Cleveland Dennis.
Hey, Dennis, how are you?
Yeah, good. I think the show is absolutely great because it's so informative. You know, I run a business, and I get connected, my landline, my fax, my cell, and I get attacked all the time. Now, a lot of this stuff, yeah, I know about this and that, but you brought up a number of great points, and I'm complimenting based on that.
Well, thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Dennis, again, I told you that actually happened to me because I called back on the fax line, and then the group was out of Florida, and they were giving me like hundreds of calls back, and they actually broke my fax machine. So you have to be careful when it comes in off the fax line, Dennis.
Yeah, I heard that, but I closed my fax. That's passé.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, again, there's a number of things, and it's the information. I even made a couple notes as I was working this afternoon, and it's appreciated. So thank you very kindly.
Well, thanks for being a loyal listener, Dennis, and we always are glad to hear from you.
Yeah. Now, I'm not complaining, but couldn't find you really on the YouTube. Everything, I don't know what happened.
Well, I'm looking at it. It's streaming now.
The recording will be up.
Yeah,
in 2
but
weeks.
I'm sure Mike will take an effort at having it on the website.
It takes like 2
but
weeks.
it's over now. I'm going to the Queen of Hearts, so hopefully things will be better.
Good luck with that. Hope you win,
Yeah,
Dennis.
thank you. Hey, thank you. All right, I got to go, guys.
Bye. Have
Take
a nice
care.
week. Good week.
Well, everybody, it was great to talk to you this afternoon. We hope we've answered some questions or gave you some
Things to think about.
and resources to go so that you're not a victim, because our policy here is to make you informed and to see to it that you're not a victim. We look forward to you following the show and watching us next week and listening to us next week. And we thank Marla for being a wonderful co-host. I think she did an excellent job today. And thank you very much. And we thank the guys in the studio for setting us up and helping us.
Thank you.
Very welcome, guys. It was a great show. Glad to be a part of it.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
WRMN 1410, Chief of the Guard, every Saturday, 1 to 2. I'm sorry.
Let me tell you
12
a story
to 1.
about
12 to 1.
Bill. Bill was a normal guy in his 50s.